Here's the LarkBox S from Chuwi. This model here has an Intel Core i3-1220P. P is nice because it's going to have more performance cores. It should outperform the 1215U significantly. 16 gigabytes RAM, 512. I believe there's a little bit of customization you can do with this. That's pretty good for a base stat. It's a 90 watt hour power supply. That's fine. Huge instruction manual. And now we'll have a look at the actual device. So this is, oh, it has a nice aesthetic to it. It's a very nice looking mini PC. Wow, okay. Normally they don't care how these things look, a lot of these companies. Nice physically raised etching on that. Not etching, I guess it would be raised up, so that's nice. Plastic material, but very nice. This is a metal ring around it, so you get a lot more structure to it. Very thin compared to some other mini PCs. They tend to be a little bit thicker. This one's a little bit thinner. Similar footprint, but thinner. Here's a Mac Mini. The new Mac Mini M4, which is the smaller one. It's actually smaller than that by a fair bit. If you actually take the feet and raise that up, that's almost, not quite, but almost a full centimeter shorter than the Mac Mini, and the area is the same. Okay, once I took off the feet, that just plopped. Okay, so 4 screws out. Metal piece comes off. That's a big giant heatsink there. That's nice. That'll help passively cool these components in here. Inside we get a NVMe, which has more kind of cooling. This is just a metal piece to help cool it down. Artem. No idea. Maxio controller. That's fine. So single NVMe there. RAM. This one ships with a single stick. There's access to a double slot there, so you can upgrade more. Raisin, which I've been seeing more and more. I guess it's like a not as big brand, but still, I guess, popular. It's good. So that's looking good. So you can upgrade to 2. It looks like it comes with 116 gigabytes, so easy enough to just pick up another kit, slap it in, or do whatever with it. Very nice. Okay, and then so it's relatively thin. Underneath is just going to be a large fan. You can see that's the size of the fan there. So we're just going to have a cooling unit underneath there. So not really any point in taking out the motherboard because underneath is just going to be a cooling unit. However, you can see that it is relatively upgradable. Upgradable Wi-Fi. Of course, you can swap out the NVMe if need be, and you get dual SODIMM slots. So that's good. Easy enough to upgrade. I'm going to put this back in the same one. Close that up, and we're good to go. Look at that cute little thing. Very interesting. I like the way it looks just overall. Okay, so first things first, we're going to check the resolutions that it supports. So 4K ultra wide, that's above normal 4K. I'm assuming it's going to work. This is over HDMI, by the way, and it does drop down the resolution. It does drop down the refresh over 4K ultra wide. That kind of makes sense. Let's see if it can do 4K 60, which is more standard. Yes, it can. So it's going to be able to do 4K 60, which is fine. It's HDMI 2.0. If you want to go higher, you're going to go HDMI 2.1. Look at that. It's nice. Very quick. So 4K 60 is good. Nice refresh rate. If you want to go with 4K ultra wide, it's going to be slightly above the bandwidth. You'll have to go with DisplayPort, which is fine. To be honest, it's totally fine. We're going to do some Cinebench runs here, primarily just for noise and that, but we can still check the scores quickly. CPU is just hanging out. It's silent, by the way, when it's not doing anything. It's completely silent. That's my noise floor. 32 to 33 is my noise floor when it's very quiet in my house. Normally it's actually higher than that, so it's completely silent. I'll put it that way. Wattages, there we are. So our watts are going to be 60-ish. I don't think it'll maintain that, but it should be able to do a burst. Yeah, it did a short burst 60, now it's down to 30, which makes more sense. Very aggressive short-term boosting, so if you're just going to open a program or something like that, or a fairly big file, it'll throw a ton of watts at the CPU, 60 watts, get a little bit more performance, and then, it can hang out. And the static seems to be, 27 or so. Very good. It did throttle for a moment there during that burst processing. You can see it shot up in temperature. because the fan wasn't going at that time either. So it just took a second for the fan to kick in, and then it ran cool. So under full load Cinebench here, we have very good temperatures. 65 on the core and 70 for the other two. About 43. No noisier than a smaller laptop like an Ultrabook. Much quieter than a gaming laptop, but relatively quiet. It's a thin little thing too, so let's check that out. Oh, that's actually better than I thought. 7,741 for an i3. It is a fairly modern one, 1220p. I didn't expect it to do that well, to be honest. It's nice because it's a P, it's not a U. When you get into some of these Intel processors, when they're like a 1240U or something like that, the efficiency and performance core ratio is going to be not as favorable. Here we do have some performance cores going on, so it's able to just generally perform a lot better. 7,741 is pretty good at such a quiet level. So, looking at some benchmarks now, for an i3, the Cinebench score is very good. Just shy of 8,000 there on a Cinebench run. This is a 12th gen processor too, so a little bit older. Obviously it's got a lot of power here, despite the fact that it's an i3. Looking at the internal storage, fast, upper speed Gen 3, very good. Looking at the ports, the front USB-A is going to be a 5 gigabit port there, so you're going to get around 500 megabytes a second, good for SATA, good for NVMe if you're using an enclosure. Then the front left USB-C is a 10 gigabit port, you get around 1,000 megabytes a second, so very fast if you're going to be doing video editing, moving big files, or doing gaming. It's going to be a great port there. The front right USB-C appears to be not a data port, just basically slower port. Going to be good for little dongles, little connectors, keyboard, that kind of stuff. So that's the purpose there. And then looking at the Wi-Fi, this area of my house has pretty bad reception overall. Despite that, we're still getting pretty good Wi-Fi connection here and pretty good Wi-Fi speeds. Now, it certainly doesn't have powerhouse gaming capabilities. It doesn't have an AMD 890M iGPU or an RTX 4090 somehow tucked inside. What it does have for graphics is Intel Xe64EU, which is not bad. Realistically, you can do some decent gaming on it. You're not going to be doing modern 2025 AAA 3D demanding titles. You can play games like this that are 2023, 2024 that are not super demanding, and you're going to get a locked 60 easy at 1080p. You're going to be able to actually increase the resolution if need be. You're going to be able to play older games as well, so things from 2020 or earlier, you're going to be fine. The Xe stuff is actually pretty decent for when it came out a couple years ago. At older titles from 2020 or below, you're going to be fine, honestly. So you're going to be able to do lots of gaming. Honestly, you're going to be paying tens of thousands of games you're going to have access to. Emulation is going to be great because it's primarily CPU bound. This is a pretty powerful CPU. But when it comes to even just actual Windows games, if you're playing games from 2024, 2025, 2026, you're going to be playing lots of games like this that are just not so visually demanding, hyper demanding 3D titles, or slightly older games from a few years ago. There's going to be hundreds, if not thousands of games, even AAA games that are just a little bit older. You're going to have no problems playing. This thing's going to be very good for emulation, however, because it has such a powerful CPU, and a lot of emulation out there does not, unless you're doing super modern stuff, is not going to be too GPU heavy. It's primarily CPU heavy. Okay, so let's bring it all back together and look at this little wee LarkBox here, and what do I think about it? The aesthetics is obviously very nice. You get this nice design on it. Nice and thin, very nice color to it. This really deep kind of gray blue, little LED on the front, looks nice, very nice. And in terms of performance, obviously it's very good. The CPU is very good in this. It's a P variant, not a U variant, so you actually get a ton of power. The getting 7,000 to 8,000 in Cinebench is no slouch for a mini PC. You're gonna be able to do heavy demanding tasks like 4K video editing, no problem. Ports are good. You do get one relatively slow USB-C for dongles and things like that. Then you get a fast USB-C, 10 gigabit, so you're going to be able to run NVMe enclosures off of that, or docks, whatever, no problem. These are also fast. They're going to go at least 500 megabytes a second when it comes to transfers, so that's also really nice. Good for things like game drives, that. Then you do get some slow stuff on the back, mouse and keyboard, that kind of thing. Dual out is obviously nice as well. You can output to 2 different displays. Very nice. Also very useful, obviously, if you're going to be using this as professional tasks, NVMe. And then, you know, it's just in terms of the actual temperatures, it runs cool, pretty cool for what it is. And it also runs pretty quiet as well. And overall, I mean, so far I've had really good success with Chuwi stuff. So that's also kind of a name brand hit. From a brand that so far has not disappointed me, is obviously, I think, for me at least, very good. So that's the Chuwi LarkBox. It's not going to be for pure gaming tasks. If you're doing heavy, modern, 3D demanding tasks, you may want to look for something with, you know, 890M graphics. But those machines are very expensive. Even 780M machines can be very expensive, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars to get into that kind of level of gaming performance. If you don't need the raw gaming performance, but you need a lot of compute, this will have a ton of CPU performance and still okay gaming performance. You're going to be able to do emulation, no problem. And in terms of actual games, you're going to be able to do slightly older AAA titles, you know, from 5 years ago or so with good settings. And then modern titles, you're just going to be more relegated towards, you know, not so super, super heavy, not things like Starfield and that. You're just not going to be able to do that on that. That's not the type of machine for that. But overall, it is actually a very nice machine. So that's the LarkBox from Chuwi. If it's something you're interested in, check it out. It's going to be more of an emulation type machine, more of an actual compute type machine. It's going to be very nice. And the other thing is, you know, you're not going to pay an absolute fortune for it. And the build quality is very nice. Not just the aesthetics, but the actual build quality is very nice. It does instill confidence when something has a nice build quality. So that's the machine there.